CM Punk and Drew McIntyre's rivalry has been nothing short of brutal, and it all came to a head when Punk finally delivered the knockout blow after months of personal attacks, shocking betrayals, and relentless assaults. The two faced off in a clash that left McIntyre stunned and defeated. Punk not only regained his prized bracelet, but also shattered McIntyre's pride in the process. With everything on the line, could this truly be the end for McIntyre, or is there one final chapter left? It all started at the Royal Rumble, and things quickly got personal between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Punk, who had entered the Rumble with high hopes, suffered a devastating injury during the match. While most wrestlers would show some form of respect or sympathy, McIntyre took a completely different route. He publicly mocked Punk for his misfortune, saying he had prayed for the injury to happen. That hit Punk on a personal level. Not only was he dealing with the physical pain of his injury, but now he had to endure McIntyre's cruel taunts. This wasn't just some rivalry based on competition anymore. It became deeply personal. McIntyre's words dug into Punk, fueling the fire for what would come next. You could see McIntyre's obsession with humiliating Punk in everything he did. He was relishing Punk's downfall, constantly bringing up the injury in interviews and backstage segments, trying to paint himself as superior. This was no longer about championships or accolades. It was about pride and redemption. McIntyre wanted to break Punk, not just physically, but mentally, and you could feel the tension between the two grow with every passing week. Fast forward to WrestleMania XL, where Drew McIntyre was riding high after winning the World Heavyweight Championship from Seth Rollins. It should have been McIntyre's crowning moment, but CM Punk wasn't about to let him enjoy it. Even while recovering from his injury, Punk had a front row seat for McIntyre's victory, and his mere presence was enough to throw McIntyre off his game. As McIntyre soaked in the moment, Punk's cold stare from the audience reminded him that this feud was far from over. And then, in a blink, it all unraveled for McIntyre. While he was distracted by Punk's presence, Damian Priest saw his opportunity. Priest cashed in his Money in the Bank contract right there, and took the title away from McIntyre. It was brutal to watch. 1 minute, McIntyre was on top of the world, and the next, he was lying flat, watching his dreams slip through his fingers. It was clear that Punk had gotten into McIntyre's head, and that mental lapse cost him dearly. McIntyre's victory celebration turned into a nightmare, and Punk didn't even have to lift a finger to make it happen. At Dubsy Clash at the Castle, Drew McIntyre was inches away from reclaiming the World Heavyweight Championship. This was his moment to shine, to right the wrongs from WrestleMania XL. The crowd was behind him, and it felt like everything was aligned for him to finally take back what he believed was his. But of course, CM Punk wasn't done with McIntyre, and he had other plans. Just as McIntyre was about to secure his victory, Punk interfered again. And once more, McIntyre's shot at the title slipped away. Punk's interference was cold and calculated, perfectly timed to throw McIntyre off balance. You could feel the air being sucked out of the arena when Punk struck, robbing McIntyre of his chance yet again. For McIntyre, it was more than just losing a match or a title opportunity. It was becoming a pattern, a humiliating one at that. Every time McIntyre seemed to get close to victory, Punk was there, waiting to tear it all down. By the time SummerSlam rolled around, the tension between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre had reached a boiling point. Both men had a lot to prove, and this match was their chance to settle it in the ring. Adding even more fuel to the fire was the fact that Seth Rollins was the special guest referee. It didn't take long for things to get heated between Punk and Rollins, which played right into McIntyre's hands. The match was intense from the start, with both men giving everything they had. But in the middle of it all, Punk and Rollins couldn't seem to keep their tempers in check. An altercation broke out between the two, and it became clear that Rollins wasn't exactly unbiased in his role as referee. This allowed McIntyre to take advantage of the situation, scoring a controversial win over Punk. The tension between Punk and Rollins overshadowed the victory, leaving everyone questioning whether McIntyre would have won if the match had been called down the middle. Now, at the DFE Bash in Berlin, the rivalry between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre reached a new level of intensity in their brutal strap match. This wasn't just a battle for supremacy, it was personal, and Punk came in ready for vengeance. After months of McIntyre mocking him and sabotaging his career, Punk had one goal: to get back what mattered most to him, his bracelet. This wasn't just any bracelet. It symbolized his love for his wife and dog, making McIntyre's obsession with it all the more cruel. The match was physically grueling, with both men taking punishment as they were literally tied together by the strap. You could feel the tension in the air as each strike and pull of the strap sent shockwaves through the crowd. But in the end, Punk triumphed, securing the victory and reclaiming his beloved bracelet. For Punk, it wasn't just a win, it was vindication. After all the torment McIntyre had put him through, this felt like the turning point. Punk had finally gained the upper hand, both physically and emotionally. Just when you thought it was over, McIntyre showed that he wasn't finished. On the very next episode of Raw, McIntyre unleashed one of the most vicious attacks on Punk we've ever seen. What made it even worse was that he destroyed the bracelet once again, tearing it right off Punk's wrist and ripping it apart in front of him. This wasn't just an assault, it was a calculated move to strike at Punk's heart. McIntyre's actions pushed the rivalry beyond anything we've seen before. This wasn't just about titles or victories in the ring anymore. McIntyre had turned it into something deeply personal, hitting Punk where it hurt the most. You could see the rage in Punk's eyes, and at that point it became clear that this feud wasn't going to end with just another match. Both men were out for blood, and neither was willing to back down. After McIntyre's attack, WWE Raw General Manager Adam Pearce decided enough was enough. He set up the ultimate conclusion, a Hell in a Cell match at WI Bad Blood. This would be the final chapter in their rivalry, and with the Hell in a Cell structure looming, you could sense how brutal this match was going to be. Both Punk and McIntyre have been through the ringer, but Hell in a Cell is a different beast entirely. McIntyre in particular has a troubled history with Hell in a Cell match. His previous encounters inside the cell have never ended well, and that psychological weight could play a big role in how things unfold. The physical toll on both men is going to be immense, but it's the emotional weight that might break them. Punk is fighting to defend everything McIntyre has attacked: his pride, his career, and the memory of his family. McIntyre, on the other hand, is driven by an obsession to finally put Punk down for good. Right before WWE Bad Blood, things took another dramatic turn on SmackDown. McIntyre, still fueled by his obsession, made a costly miscalculation in his latest encounter with Punk. The two brawled once again, but this time it was Punk who delivered the decisive blow. In that moment, you could feel the tide shift. McIntyre, so consumed with his need to humiliate Punk, let his guard down, and Punk capitalized. McIntyre's downfall here was a mix of overconfidence and pure rage. He thought he had everything under control, but Punk was always one step ahead. This showdown on SmackDown marked what might be the beginning of the end for McIntyre in this bitter feud. Punk's ability to regain the upper hand showed just how resilient he is, and it sent a clear message to McIntyre. Punk wasn't going anywhere. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.